Hey everyone! In this video I'm going to be covering the topic of organic foods and whether you should or should not be buying organics. What's the difference? So we're going to start with two things. One, I'm going to be discussing soil and how plants grow out of that soil. And two, we're going to talk about scientific studies. So let's grab our tinfoil hats. Whoop, 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 and let's go to the garden! Alright, now that we're in the garden, I'm going to begin to explain the process of how soil, when you plant a seed, will produce a plant. Now, all dirt in fields or gardens or wherever fruit and vegetables are grown are different. They're not going to produce the same food. And here's why. Because in this dirt, okay, we have living organisms. Okay, this is organic dirt from my house. There's no pesticides or whatever on it. And because there's no pesticides killing it, microorganisms can live. And to oversimplify here for you, things like worms that are allowed to live can eat any dead parts in the soil and poop out nutrients and food for the plants. So when these worms can do their job, the plants can have available nutrients and can grow. This is very similar to what composting is. When you get old food, old dead food, and you allow it to sit and the organisms to stir and build up, and now you have good nutrient-dense soil. You need to remember one thing. If it's not in the soil, it won't be in the plant. So if you don't have nutritious soil, you won't have nutritious plants. If you're growing with herbicides, pesticides, fungicides, you're killing a lot of the microorganisms that are in the soil that will naturally produce all the healthy vitamins for the plants. Not to mention, if you over-farm any field, you're taking out the minerals. And if you don't replace the minerals, then you're not getting those minerals in your plants. If you function as a big corporation and your end goal is to make money, you don't really care about how nutritious plants are. You just need to produce them quickly. Therefore, you'll keep replanting the same crops, like let's say corn or wheat or whatever, producing it over and over and over and over, and then that specific plant uses specific nutrients from the soil, and now the soil is just becoming depleted, because there's no microorganisms like worms to reproduce the vitamins in the soil. Alright, now we're going to discuss scientific studies. Scientific studies, to my best knowledge, will confirm that organic food is not really different from inorganic food. So i.e., the plants grown in my garden here should have very little nutritional difference than the ones grown under pesticide, herbicide conditions. Now I'm going to exclude, in my explanations here, the effects of those pesticides and herbicides that you're eating, but I'll cover that a little bit later in the topic. So, about 50% of studies will say organic food is good, 50% will say there's no difference, and some might even say that organic is less healthy. Now, if you just think about what I said earlier in the video, why would organic food that hasn't had its microorganisms killed, that isn't destroying the natural process of regeneration for the plants, be less healthy and less nutritious than food that's been sprayed with pesticides, that's destroyed the conditions of the soil underneath it, and now microorganisms can't properly produce food for the plants. And if it's not in your soil, it sure as hell isn't in your plants. But here's the thing. We all know that corporations like to screw around with data. So this is what they'll do. I'll give you a few examples. They'll go and they'll buy scientists, quote unquote buy, they'll fund research. Let's say a company like Monsanto's, and they want to prove that organic is the same as non-organic pesticide food. So what they can do, here's a few options they have, is they'll go and pay someone to run the tests, and they could run the tests 5 times from 5 different sources of plants, and if 4 out of 5 times it says, wow, look at this, organics is much better, Monsanto's can go, yeah, it is, but we're not gonna produce that study. No one's ever gonna find those results. We're only gonna publish the results where we get lucky and find that nutrients were actually either the same or better in these non-organic foods. They have total control. Whoever funds it has complete control of if the results come out. So if the results show something negative that they don't want to come out, it won't come out. So that's one thing they can do. Another thing they can do is determine where they choose their organic foods. So if I live here in Langley, BC, and I pick a pesticide grown fruit, like let's say some spinach that's been sprayed and had the whole works done. And then I order something from California or Mexico, the same plant, that's organic, but now it has to be shipped, and it may take a week or two to get here. I don't know what the shipping conditions are, I don't know what the storage conditions are. And the longer a plant goes without being connected to the dirt, so as soon as I pull it out, it starts to degrade itself. It starts to lose vitamins and minerals. So if the airplane is too hot, if it's too cold, it's not the right condition for nutrients to survive. So obviously if I test something organic from a distance compared to something non-organic from right here, the nutrition could be the same because it's been degraded from the travel. Now, here is where the real trickery comes in. What companies like Monsanto can do is create their own certification boards for organics. And they can take two fields right next to each other, and their new subordinate corporation that certifies organic, let's say XYZ company, they come and in the field next over it, they certify it organic. Their corporation, Monsanto's Organic Corporation, can now just certify that as being organic, and then they have a field right next to that that's inorganic. It's the same plant, but now they can slap a certified sticker onto it. Do you see where I'm going here? Corporations make their own corporations underneath them, and they call them certifiers, so certified by XYZ, and now they can go and run their tests, and they can say, oh yeah, we tested certified organic fruits and vegetables versus non-certified organic fruits and vegetables. They're testing the exact same thing, except they just slapped on their own label to one of them, slapped on the non-organic label to the other, compared them, and of course they're going to be the same. And they want these results to be out there, so they're going to force them to come out, because it benefits them. They make money. Who doesn't want to make money, right? Yeah. So, that's my take on scientific studies. Yes, science is great and all that, but whoever's funding it can control it as much as they want. And let's be honest, no one's funding crazy amounts of studies to prove that organic food is actually better and more nutritious, because most of the food sold is non-organic, and those big corporations are the ones that fund the studies. Now I want to talk about safety limits in terms of government regulations. So safety limits in terms of parts per million. So let's say pesticide X is safe at 3 parts per million. And the way they arrive at this is the corporation that creates chemical X does tests and runs their own tests to say, oh yeah, at 3 parts per million it looks like nothing happens, so it's all good. It's all good. And then that's it. Now, if the standard is set for 3 parts per million for chemical X. Okay, well, that might not be entirely bad if chemical X was the only thing that was getting sprayed into your food. So you have to consider how many other pesticides, herbicides, and fungicides are along with this chemical X, which is only good at 3 parts per million. And then, let's say you have 30 of these chemicals on your tomatoes and carrots and whatever, and you go and you cook a soup with them. Now you're heating chemicals, and you're combining them in never-before-seen combinations, creating new super chemicals that you don't know what's gonna do to your body. Your body has never been exposed to it before. Your liver doesn't know how to handle it, and so you're basically storing toxins. Even though you're eating vegetables, it's like, yes, I'm doing something good for myself. At the same time, you're almost poisoning your body if you're having too much of these negative pesticides. Now, here's one other trickery that occurs. If it's safe in parts per million, let's imagine your immune system can catch it and destroy it, and it doesn't even get to your cells. You're all good. At 3 parts per million, it's all good. But at parts per trillion, so the less significant we get in size, the more the impact is actually. Because in parts per million, your body can mount an immune reaction if you have the nutrients on board, and it could defend itself. But we don't really know, because there's so many chemicals, there's so many different effects on the body, you can't really tell. But let's imagine their safety limits are okay. At parts per billion and parts per trillion, the amount of the chemical is so small and insignificant, your body can't detect it. It can't mount an immune defense against it. So these chemicals get in, bypass the immune system, and now they get stored in different cells across your body. And then we wonder why we have diseases and cancers and things we just can't explain growing at a rapid level in our civilization. This is because, okay, I shouldn't say it's because solely pesticides, herbicides, and whatever crap that they put into our foods. but it's food for thought. So I know I covered a lot in this video. Leave me some comments. I'm sure there's gonna be some questions. Yeah, hope that kind of clears up the scientific side, the soil side, and the pesticide herbicide side. Have a great day. Peace.